In both Spain and the United States, HR departments are extremely common in organizations. As you can see by the stats, 99% of organizations have HR departments in Spain, 96.2% in the US. Yet in Spain, we see that HR departments are more commonly on boards of directors or top executive teams than in the United States. And this is an important sign that perhaps human resources and people management is more important in big decisions in Spain than in the United States. You can also see statistics highlighting how human resources strategies are written and more formalized in Spain than perhaps they are in the United States. And lastly, human resources decides on pay and benefits 25% of the time in Spain, but 40% of the time in the United States, which indicates that human resource departments in the United States have slightly more independence to make decisions without a consultation of higher management or other divisions of the firm. We see workplace childcare, maternity and paternity leave, and childcare allowance rates across organizations are mostly the same between Spain and the United States. Perhaps the biggest difference in work-life balance between the two countries comes from career break schemes. This is essentially an agreed-upon period of unpaid leave, which is super uncommon in the US. I could personally attest to that. We also see parental leave and fixed-term contracts be a lot more popularly used in Spain, telling us that while workers' employment might not be long-lasting at a Spanish firm, the employment benefits are sometimes better than U.S. firms. And lastly, United States workers work more on weekends than Spanish workers. Moving on, both Spain and the United States use internal recruitment as their most popular way to fill managerial positions. This makes sense since a manager has likely formerly held the position of their subordinates and knows how to effectively oversee them. It's also important to note that this organizational tendency of internal recruitment also creates an incentive within the organization to work diligently and stay at the company, because workers will do so with the intention of eventually becoming manager. In Spain, we see recruiting agencies used for managerial recruitment and company websites used for managers in the organization the second most. In Spain, we can observe one-on-one interviews being the most common form of managerial selection, while in the US, references account for the most popular method. One should also note that a majority of Spanish firms are downsizing, while close to half of U.S. firms are growing, and obviously that has ties to the economy as a whole and the labor market in both countries. This is promising for workers in the U.S. who are either looking for work or are keen on retaining their jobs, since there are probably low odds that they'll be laid off. And lastly, both Spain and the United States use wage and recruitment freezes for hard and soft downsizing, respectively.
So whenever you move into a new country or a new town or a new city, there's going to be different, regulations. So that's especially key when you're moving to a new country and you're looking at how their training and development works. Now, if we look at Spain and the United States, we can see that Spain does indeed have a little bit more in terms of training days, about around one more training day on average than the U.S., but the U.S. is actually spending around 40% more on training than in Spain. Another thing we want to look at is how effective this training is. If we look at Spain, they're really keen on improving their training. So they're doing a lot of evaluations to make sure that their training is effective so that their money is going to the right place. So if we look at the stats, we can see that 82% evaluate training effectiveness, whereas in the U.S., it's only 41%. So in Spain, while we do see a little bit less in terms of expenditure, we are going to see a little bit more in terms of them evaluating and improving the process. Also, on top of that, we're going to see increased written HR strategy and HR responsibility in the United States. So it's a lot more formal than we would see in Spain. Okay, now moving down to compensation and benefits. Spain and the U.S. overall share similar pay metric in terms of a lot of Spanish and United States companies have profit sharing, have options, and performance bonuses. One of the main things that differences between the two countries is that in Spain, work is a lot more team focused. So, what that looks like is that in Spain, there is a lot more focus on, the team doing well. There's team bonuses that are given out, where in the United States, a lot of it is more individually based. Also, looking at the compensation and benefits, Spain, 74% national or regional bargaining, where the U.S. has 36% national or regional bargaining. So, United States, it's a lot more accustomed to do some negotiations on an individual level, where in Spain, that's not the case. Also, in the United States, given that there aren't as many benefits in terms of government benefits, healthcare and all that is not taken care of. So there's a lot more non-monetary incentives than there are in Spain. Another major difference that I saw was that in Spain, 52% career break schemes, where in the United States, it's 8%. That's a huge difference. That means, if you're moving from the U.S. to Spain, Spain definitely is going to have a lot more opportunity in terms of if you need to take a career break so you don't get run out. Because in Spain, as we know, the quality of life is a lot higher and has a lot more focus and emphasis than in the United States. Now let's move on to employee relations and communication. So if we look at employee relations and communication, there definitely is a big difference in terms of Spain and the U.S., but overall, I don't think you're going to be able to notice such a difference. The amount of unions and union influence is quite similar in the U.S. and Spain. Trade union influence in Spain is 27%, where in the United States it's 22%, but overall pretty similar in terms of what you're going to be able to feel. However, 82% recognize trade unions for collective bargaining in Spain, whereas 63% recognize trade unions for collective bargaining in the United States. That's just a difference in terms of country viewpoints. In the United States, trade unions aren't as recognized unless they are given, formal federal approval, where in Spain they seem to be more recognized and more able to act in terms of collective bargaining. Also in Spain, we're going to see a more flat workplace structure. So what that's going to look like is, being able to be more approachable, where in the United States, we're going to see more of a top-down communication, where the top guy tells the guy under him and it gets all the way down. Where in Spain, you have more access to people. People are more open. It's just overall more flat workplace structure. And then lastly, 50% formal briefs on company strategy in Spain, whereas 40% formal briefs on company strategy in the United States. So, Spain is a little bit more open, but not really a major difference that you're going to notice than the United States. But overall, I think, Spain and the United States do have a lot of similarities in terms of how their countries react, how loose and tight they are, and, how strict they are, but also have a lot of differences in terms of who the Spanish people are, how they like to interact versus the United States. And that is all. Thank you for listening and watching our presentation. Goodbye.